Can you guys hear me okay? It says that I'm still on mute. No? Okay, got it. Um, Question is that, Ari, I've seen you've been talking about in some of the other channels about work that you've done on getting a number of different people involved around the EMS system that you've built, where there's all these different people that are plugging in to this channel that you worked on. What I've been wondering is, I'd like to replicate that same process for the mentors and the coaches and all the different the customers that we have for our process around our venture accelerator. But I'd like you to just, if you could, talk through that Airtable that you have. You have this large Airtable, this workflow process that you've got all these different people. What have you learned from it? What's happening? Any kind of deeper insight that you could share would be great.
Absolutely. So just for people who don't know what Kevin's referring to, I am the vice president and also lieutenant at our local EMS rescue squad here. I've been an EMT for a number of years, and I helped create a much more streamlined and automated recruiting and onboarding process, and it all centers around Airtable. Now, anybody who's known me for more than 5 minutes knows that I love Trello, and I still do. Airtable is a slightly different beast and cousin in a way. And Airtable can do a lot of things that Trello does, but I don't really use it so much for project management per se. Airtable is technically what would be referred to as a referential database. And some of you listening know exactly what I'm talking about because you have that sort of tech background. But essentially, it is a database where there's multiple different sets of data that refer to each other live in sync, basically. So what I did with Airtable is, first of all, so all the people that come in, they fill out a jot form. That's how they apply. And I just happen to like jot form. You can use anything you want, gravity forms, type form, all those things. Then through Zapier, those jot form entries get loaded into an Airtable record. And when you look at Airtable without doing any sort of setup, it basically looks like an Excel spreadsheet. You've got rows and columns. Very, very simple. But what's interesting with Airtable is that you can have multiple views of the same data. So you can do a Kanban view, you can do a calendar view, you can do what they refer to as a gallery view, and that's for much more visual stuff. So what I like with Airtable is that if I look at it, I can have the person's headshot there, and that's like the image that comes up, and it's got their name, and then I can have as much information as I want from the fields. And we've got things, like date of birth, if they're an EMT or not, all that kind of stuff. If you look at it in a Kanban view, which is what Trello would look like, right? You have the phases. You can organize that based on different statuses. So in this case, it's like, new applications, references received, interview scheduled, interview done, medical clearance, that kind of thing. And you can see them moving through the process. I personally think that Kanban is the only way that human beings can actually process tasks and project management effectively. Everybody's got their own method and systems, but there's something in the visual, even if you're not a visual person, the visual nature of Trello and a Kanban makes it very clear that you're trying to move from here to here, right? So you can look at it that way in Airtable. If you have dates on these things, so for example, interview dates, right? We've got people scheduled for interview. Now we can have a calendar view that shows all of the interview dates from the interview date field that is in Airtable. If you open up a record on another table, it will actually have a white line that points to the other table that it references. So, for example, every time, so when people apply to the rescue squad, they have to submit 3 references. And those 3 references, first of all, did some snazzy stuff, and each one of them, through Zapier, gets an automated email based on the email they sent. But what it also does now is, with most form tools, you can actually pre-populate certain fields by changing the URL that you click on. So if you click, jotform.com/form6759, and then it's like $subject equals, and then something, so you can pre-populate. So what this does is that each of those 3 references get an individualized email with an individualized link. So when they click on it, it already fills in the person's name and email address that they're writing the reference for, so we don't get mistakes. When they fill that out, it goes back into Airtable, all that information is there, and then it links back to the person's record. So now we can go to the person's record and see the linked references from the reference table, which is really cool. Once they become a member, now they have to go through what we call mod training. So there's 11 modules that they have to train on. And so now one of the things you can do in Airtable is you can have a form that's right in Airtable. and it pulls from those different referential databases. So we have a form where somebody can pull up, and they can choose the module they trained on, they can choose who's done the training, and they can choose the applicant from the applicant table. It loads that in, and then it updates the initial record so it has all the modules that they've trained on, when they trained on all that. And what this all really ends up doing is it allows you to organize the data really well in different pockets while maintaining connections between them that are live. And then it really allows you to sort of slice and dice the data any way you want. So do I want to see how many people have trained on this module this month? Do I want to look at a Kanban view and see there's 7 people at mod 6 right now and 4 at mod 3, so what's going on over here? Do I want to see that this particular member who's been training all these people has done a really good job on these mods and all these other? So it just makes it really, really easy to do that. And it's one of those many tools where you're given a blank canvas, and it's a real problem for some people, right? It becomes very overwhelming. All these different choices means that I have no choices. And it's one of the reasons that Trello used to have something like a 5% active user rate, because people would sign up for a free account, make a field or like a thing or two, and just abandon it because they're like, oh, now I don't know what to do with it now. So and you run the risk there with something like Airtable. But one of the things that I think Airtable has done better than a lot of the other tools also is they have Airtable University, I think, or Universe. And it's got templates of all sorts of things. So you want inventory management? Tesla's inventory management system happens, or it used to be on Airtable. So that's there. You can copy that. You want an applicant management system? They've got one that you can mess around with. So it's just a great tool there. So I kind of gave an overview. I don't know if I answered your specific question.
Right. Yeah. It kind of gives me a better idea about the flow and the possibility. Let me, if you don't mind me asking a follow-on question.
Yeah.
The follow-on question to that is, so for those of us that don't have as much, I mean, I imagine that same level of complexity that you described is exactly what we need to manage all these different people flowing through our system.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering is, my dream is that level of complexity. Would you actually, what's your philosophy about, would you roll out a tool like that initially? Or would you actually, like for those of us that are mere mortals, perhaps build half the tool and then work with it? Or what's your philosophy about that? Like, should we really push for the overall thing? Like, because I've been working on based on my perception of your model, and I'm wondering how far should I go before I actually put it into practice? Is it?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So I have done applicant track assistance with Trello that are much more simplified, don't have the references, don't have all these different things. And you can technically do linking cards in Trello, but it's not as clean. So if you feel like your process is going to have even a small level of complexity, then you should go with something like Airtable right away, because it's much easier to switch from Airtable to Trello than it is from Trello to Airtable. Now, obviously, we're just talking specifically about Trello and Airtable. You see this in all sorts of other tools as well, whether it's Salesforce or Trello again, or Infusionsoft versus MailChimp, right? So there are certain situations where it's like, yeah, it's probably going to stay this. It's not about scaling and growth, because you could have 1,000 applicants in a simplified system in Trello. It's not about the number. It's really about that level of complexity. In this case, it's like we need to link to multiple references, multiple interviewers, and then multiple module trainings, all that kind of stuff. And you're going to get frustrated trying to do that in a tool other than Airtable. And the benefit too is that when I built this, I started with just the applicant tab, right? And just putting in people's records. Then I built the reference one and we add that in. Then I built the tracker, then we add that in. So you can start small and then build off of it.
It makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I've got 100 other questions, but I can definitely I'll get out of the way. I appreciate the time. I appreciate what you guys are doing, and thank you, Ari.
Thanks, Alan.